Welcome back. If you're just joining us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television. A reminder of our top stories. Borno State government confirms 14 deaths from fresh outbreak of cholera in 8 local government areas. Federal government approves 6 trillion naira strategic plan for national health development for the next 5 years. Demand for restructuring of Nigeria continues as senior lawyers and rights activists call for urgent action from the federal government. And 2 Russian nationals named as suspects in attempted murder of former Russian spy Sergei Skripal and his daughter. Now, channelstv.com has more information for you, and on youtube.com/channelsweb, you can also watch our videos. You can watch us on your mobile device via your browser or download the Channels TV app for Android, iOS, and Windows devices from their respective stores. Besides giving you access to news updates on the go, the Channels TV and Channels 24 app have an eyewitness feature that you can use to share pictures, videos, or news of happenings around you. Just install the app, then tap and swipe to reveal the menu, and then follow the instructions. Now let's see some of the images that you sent in. We have this first set of images from Akure, the Ondo State capital, showing this building, which our eyewitness says is undergoing renovation. According to him, the building, which is the school hall of a secondary school, has been in a bad shape for a long time before a former student intervened. He's asking that former students should make their own contributions to the development of their former schools without necessarily waiting for government. Next is this image from Agric bus stop in the Ikorodu area of Lagos State, showing these people whom our eyewitness reporter says are commuters waiting for the BRT bus. He laments how he and other people had to wait for more than 1 hour before getting a bus, and he wants the state government to attend to that. From the Kabai-Lori Federal Road at Makpa-Moro local government area of Kogi State comes this image of a bad road, which our eyewitness reporter says is a source of concern to commuters and motorists. He wants the federal government to come to their rescue. Our final image is from Port Harcourt Expressway at Oigbo local government area of River State, also showing the poor state of that road. Our eyewitness is worried by the state of the road, which is a federal highway, and wants the federal government to look in that direction. Thank you for sending in these images, and please keep sending us more. Now we'll take a slightly deeper look at the issue of restructuring and why it apparently has become more urgent than it was in the past. And for that, I'm being joined on the news at 10 by a renowned historian, Professor Benjy Kotori. Good evening, and thanks for joining us on the news at 10.
Thank you.
Now, this debate has been going on now for almost forever. And from time to time, we return to it and then we go away. But what exactly are we restructuring?
Well, we have a country that is not only very large, but that is made up of hundreds of different peoples, each people with its own territory, each people with its own culture, each people with its own approach to development. And no other country in the world that is similar to ours tries to run everything through a federal government at the center, through just one government at the center. It cannot be done. As we are seeing, all of this poverty, corruption, insensitive government in the states and in the federal government are all a product of this over-centralization of power and resource management at the center. It has brought our country very, very low, and those of us whose life job has been to look at what is happening
and what has happened
and what has happened and what is happening in our country and in other countries have arrived at a point at which we begin to fear that refusal to do this correct thing could lead to the dissolution of our country. We don't want that to happen. That's why we are shouting, let's restructure our country. And it is not that we didn't know, we don't know what is essential. It's not that we have never done it before. The founding fathers of our country in the 1950s constitutional conference after constitutional conference, and came to the very definitive decision that the only way to hold this country together is through a federal system. And we saw the federal system between 1952 and 1966, and I think on the whole, most Nigerians who are old enough today to remember those days would agree willingly, without any hesitation at all, that a properly managed federal government would serve the best interests of this country. It served the interests of the country.
Prof, I'll put you on pause to ask this. Now, there's the argument that this is more constitutional than political.
It is political. It's something, it's a decision we have to take to do it. And thinking that the National Assembly alone can do it is not right.
How would you propose we go about it? Because there are some people that have said that there are already structures in place to carry out this restructuring, although it doesn't go by that name. It goes by the name amendments to the existing constitution. What you're talking about probably is more profound than that, and probably more
it's more profound than mere amendment. We have been hearing of amendments almost every year from the National Assembly. We don't see the product of it in real life. No, I don't think the National Assembly should be left to do this. This is a decision that must be taken at the political level, at the level of government. And then we speak together, talk together, discuss to find what is the best way to approach it. And then we approach it that way. India, in 1953, decided to restructure. And what they did was to set up a national commission on restructuring to explain to the country precisely what are the processes that need to be gone through, and to see the country through the processes. And the Prime Minister, who had formally opposed restructuring, who had threatened that if the country is restructured and the ethnic groups and linguistic groups are brought into it, that he would resign as Prime Minister. But he finally concurred and helped to see the process through. By 1966, India was already well structured in a way that...
Between 1953, I'm sorry, Prof, between 1953 and 1966 is a 13-year period.
Yeah.
Now, between now and the elections next year, you have less than 6 months. Can we do this within that period?
No, what we need in Nigeria is not as long as the Indian situation. What we need in Nigeria is a government that decides, okay, in the interest of our country, and in obedience to the voices of an obvious majority of Nigerians, we are going to do this. And then we then create a situation in which we have now to establish the processes of doing it. It may be less than a few months, it may be many months, but if we don't start to do it, we are risking the life of our country.
You would agree that it can then go on side by side with this process that leads to the election?
Of course, yes, of course. I don't think the two have...
one has to stop for the other.
No, I don't think one does. One has to stop for the other. No, one doesn't have to stop for the other. We can proceed with the processes of election, and we can also proceed with the processes of restructuring our federation.
Now, final question, Prof. When you talk about restructuring, different people have said different things. For essentially the ethnic, what I call ethnic groupings, but which you call the peoples, seem to have different ideas of what they want to put into the restructuring pot. They agree that there's need to restructure, but they have peculiar needs about what they want.
Yeah.
Now, has there been an attempt to aggregate this into some kind of national agenda that is then easily explained to everybody?
I would say yes. There have been a lot of discussion. The peoples of the South, the South-South, Southeast, Southwest, and the people of the Middle Belt,
That's the North Central.
yeah, North Central, working together, basically agreed on what they want for restructuring. What they want, simply, is that the powers gradually taken away from the federating units between 1966 and 1999 be reviewed, so that most of those powers, or all of those powers, are returned to the federating units. And the federal government then stands as it stood on December 31st, 1960, on January 15, 1966, with the power to do certain things and not to do other things. And the regional government with the power to do some things and not other things. So those powers of the regional government should now return to the federating units of our federation. And the powers that belong to the federal government at that point should stay with the federal government. That's
Prof,
it.
We've completely run out of time. I have to thank you very much for joining us on the news attention.
You're welcome.
Professor Benjy Kotori is a renowned historian. The police have kept to their promise of swift action to unravel the circumstances surrounding the illegal search of the home of elder statesman Chief Edwin Clark in Abuja on Tuesday. The suspected informant in the search, one Ismail Yakubu, said to hail from Waru village in the Apo district of Abuja, has been paraded by the police in the nation's capital. The police have also named the officers alleged to have carried out the search. They are ASP David Dominic, who allegedly led the team in the search. The others are Inspector Godwin Musa, Inspector Sadar Abubakar, and Inspector Yabo Paul. Police spokesman Jima Moshood explains that while ASP Dominic has been queried, the three inspectors are currently undergoing orderly trial for the appropriate punishment to be meted out to them. Meanwhile, the Inspector General of Police, Ibrahim Idris, has apologized to Chief Clark over the illegal search conducted at his residence. The apology was tendered on the IGP's behalf by a delegation led by Mr. Habila Joshak, a Deputy Inspector General of Police, along with some police commissioners. When the news at 10 returns, OPEC Secretary General Mohammed Barkindo expects global oil consumption to hit 100 million barrels per day later this year. That'll be on the business news. Do join us again.